Okay, good morning, sixth graders. Our last math assignment for the year, and we are going to look at percent, decimal, and ratio, and we're going to look at changing them into the other form, because when we look at these things, they really are values, and values can be written in a lot of different forms. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to be doing a couple of examples for you, like what they're going to ask you to do in the book. And I'm hoping that that will help you to be able to then go ahead and do the assignment. So let's look at first thing, we're going to be writing a ratio as a percent. So they can give us a ratio in a lot of different ways, and we talked about that yesterday. They could give us a ratio in word form. So my example here is 14 out of 25. And what they're asking us to do is to write it as a percent. Now, the process of doing that is, first of all, you have to write that as a fraction. So 14 out of 25 is the same as 14 over 25. And then, in order to get it to a percent, we need to change this to an equivalent fraction with 100 at the bottom, because we know that percent is always based on an example of 100. So in order to get this to an equivalent fraction with 100 at the bottom, I can look at the denominator and see, oh, 25 goes into 100 4 times. So all I have to do is take 14 and multiply it by 4, and I'm going to get, I don't know, so I'm going to have to actually do it, which you all might have to do it as well. I get 56. So now I have it in the fraction form, and I have to change it to the percent, which is really easy because I know that it's just the top number, 56%. So, and if we look at a 14 is a little bit more than half of 25. And 56% is a little bit more than half. So it makes sense. My answer makes sense, just like math always makes sense. That's one of my favorite math sayings. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with the fraction form of a ratio. We're going to turn it into a percent, which is just what we're skipping to this step right here. And here we have 80. Over here, 80 over 100. So that's really easy because that's just 80%. Easy cheesy. Really, really easy. Now, even easier is changing a decimal to a percent. And we know that a decimal is just, all we have to do is we have to multiply our decimal value by 100 to get to a percent. And the easiest way to do that is just to move your decimal. So we're gonna times 100, which is basically moving the decimal over 2 places, 1, 2, and I get 58% for this problem. I have 0.50, or I have 58 hundredths, and that's the other way you can look at it. You could just say the number, and if it's in hundredths, you know that's the percent. So it's 58%. Now, that's the first section that they're going to ask you to do. They're going to give you a ratio in one of these 3 forms, and they want you to change it to a percent. Now, then they're going to give you a percent, and they want you to change it to a fraction and a decimal. So they're going to ask you for 2 things. So I have 2 examples here that we're going to do of percents that we're changing to a fraction and to a decimal, which is really easy. So let's start with 12%. So we know that 12% is the same as 12 over 100. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is that when you do your fraction, you need to have it in simplest form. So this is a fraction, but it's not in simplest form. So I'm going to take the top number and I'm going to divide it by the same number as I divide the bottom number, and I know that 4 goes into both of these, so 4 goes into 12 3 times, 4 goes into 100 25 times. So that is the answer in the fraction form. The decimal changing this into a decimal is really easy. I just take my 12, and then instead of multiplying by 100, I'm going to divide by 100, which means I'm just moving the decimal point the opposite way to the left, and I'm moving it 2 places. So my decimal value for 12% is 0.12. Okay? Easy, huh? Exactly. Easy. Really easy. Okay, here's another problem. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more challenging. I have 4.5%. So if I put this over 100 like I did there, I have 4.5 over 100. And usually you don't keep a point in your fractions. So really what we'd want to do is we'd want to multiply the top number and the bottom number by 10. So we get rid of this we get rid of the decimal on a fraction. So we would have 45 over 1,000. And then if you wanted to simplify that, we know 5 goes into 45 and it goes into 1,000. 5 goes into 45 9 times, and 5 goes into 1,000 200 times. Now, I would accept either one of these answers, but this one is the better answer, unless you're working with statistics, and sometimes when you're working in statistics, they'd rather have it as 1,000, but this is simplest form for that. Now, we also have to write this as a decimal, and we're going to do the same thing as we did above. We have 4.5, and we're dividing it by 100. So we would take our our decimal, and we'd move it over once, but that's not enough, so we have to add another 0, and then we would be able to move it over twice, so our answer would be 0.045. Okay, so that's what they're going to be asking you to do. Some of them are asking you for 2 answers, so if they're asking you for 2 answers, you would need the fraction and you would need the decimal. So you'd need 2 things: the fraction in simplest form and the decimal, and those are our highlighted areas for that. So your assignment is to do on page 447, 1 through 28. Now, if you don't want to do this assignment, I'm going to give you an alternate assignment. You can look in the book and you can find any section of the book that we have not done yet, which would be, I believe, chapter 12 on, and you can do 28 problems of any, let's say 25 to 30 problems of any of the other lessons that you'd rather do instead of this. So the bottom line here, your last assignment in math for the year is either this, or you can pick another assignment, but it has to be between 25 and 30 problems. And you have to tell me what page it's on, because how will I be able to correct it if I don't have no clue what page you worked on? So please make sure to clarify what you're working on. All right. I hope you've enjoyed math as much as I've enjoyed teaching it. It's a great skill to have, the use of numbers, and I look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon. God bless. Bye.